Welcome to the IP addressing lesson, where you'll learn how to dissect an IP address, an IP version 4 address, and you'll understand how IP addresses work. So this is gonna be a great lesson, where you will really learn a ropes of IP addressing and what it means. So let's go and get started and look at our agenda for this lesson. We'll start up by discussing what IP addressing is and how it works. We'll also discuss the two forms of IP addresses and figure out how to set up dynamic and static IP addresses and these different kinds of things. It's gonna be really good. This is super important for any network engineer or IT professional to know. This stuff is the basis for a lot of what's to come. So let's go and get started. An IP address is a string of numbers break up by using periods. It's expressed as a set of 4 numbers. A pattern may be 192.158.1.190. Every set of numbers can vary from 0 to 255. An IP address is a unique address that identifies a gadget on the internet or a neighborhood network. IP stands for Internet Protocol, which is the set of guidelines governing the structure of information dispatched by way of the web or nearby network. Like the street address for your home, an IP address identifies network computers that allow information to be sent between gadgets on a network. They comprise region records and make devices handy for communication. Well then, why do we have IP addresses? And we can argue, why do our houses have addresses? It's so they're reachable for the mail people to deliver the mail. And that's the whole purpose of an IP address. An IP address is important. Devices need them so they know where to send their data. Not only does it include the address of the device, but the address of the network that the device is in. That means, with one simple address, we can find out a device on a local network or on the other side of the world. IP addresses come in two different forms. These are called IPv4 and IPv6, and they look quite different. IPv6 is newer, but IPv4 is still more common. So we're gonna focus our attention entirely on IPv4 for now. Firstly, this is what an IP address looks like. It's 4 numbers separated by dots. Each of these numbers is called an octet. As each number is an 8-bit value, we break it off into 4 separate octets to make it easier for us humans. And if you are having trouble remembering what octet is, think of an octopus. An octopus has 8 tentacles and an octet has 8 bits. 8-bit means that these numbers can range from 0 to 255. That means that an IP address starts at 0.0.0.0 and ends at 255.255.255.255. IP addresses are actually 2 addresses in one. The IP address is the address of the device, but is also the address of the network and the device is in. 2 addresses in one, how is this possible? Let's take a look at the sample IP address here. 172.16.0.1. The first part, 172.16, refers to the network. The second part, 0.1, is the host address. All the hosts here that starts with 172.16 are in the same network. If we add more hosts and the IP address start with 172.17, then this is a different network. If hosts in different IP networks need to communicate, then it needs to be a router between them. Public IP addresses come in two forms, the dynamic and the static. Dynamic IP addresses exchange mechanically and regularly. ISPs buy a large pool of IP addresses and assign them robotically to their customers. Periodically, they reassign them and put the older IP addresses returned into the pool to be used for particular customers. The intent for this technique is to generate fee economic financial savings for the ISP. Static IP addresses. In distinction to dynamic IP addresses, static addresses remain consistent. Once the network assigns an IP address, it stays the same. Most individuals and agencies do not need a static IP address. But for organizations that design to host their own server, it is crucial to have one. Let me show you this video on how to set up static and dynamic addresses. Step 1. Type settings in the Start menu and click Open. Step 2. Click Network and Internet. Step 3. Click Change Adapter option. Step 4. Select the active connection. It's either LAN or Wi-Fi. Right-click and click Properties. Step 5. Double-click Internet Protocol version 4 or the TCP/IP version 4. Step 6. Click Obtain an IP address automatically and click OK. Step 7. To check if the IP address changed to dynamic, type CMD in the Start button and click Open. Step 8. Type ipconfig and hit Enter. Step 9. You notice that the IP address was assigned automatically by the network, including the default gateway of the network. Step 1. Type settings in the Start menu and click Open. Step 2. Click Network and Internet. Step 3. Click Change Adapter option. Step 4. Select the active connection. It's either LAN or Wi-Fi. Right-click and click Properties. Step 5. Double-click Internet Protocol version 4 or the TCP/IP version 4. Step 6. Click Use the following IP address and type your preferred IP address. Step 7. To check if the IP address changed to dynamic, type CMD in the Start button and click Open. Step 8. Type ipconfig and hit Enter. Step 9. You notice that the IP address was assigned by the user and not by the network. The default gateway hides automatically. That's it. Now, you can change your settings into static or dynamic, depending on your choice.